Well, good morning, folks. Let's officially begin. Welcome to the 2026 Statewide Collaborative Prevention Convening. Our title for this event is Prevention in Action, From Collaboration to Transformation. My name is Sarah Lacroix, and I'm a co-lead for the Strategies Technical Assistance Program with All for Kids, which is formerly Children's Bureau of Southern California, and also the director for the Los Angeles County Child Abuse Prevention Councils. In partnership with the Child Abuse Prevention Center in Sacramento, Strategies TA continues to provide support to prevention collaboratives, child abuse prevention councils, family resource centers, and their networks with a focus on community pathways. We're thrilled to come together with all of you today to share best practices and collective wisdom for the betterment of the resilient children and families we all serve. Now, before I introduce my co-lead and fellow MC for today, I'd like to give a great big thank you to the California Department of Social Services, Office of Child Abuse Prevention, for continuing to fund this innovative, important, and prevention-centered work. Your partnership and support are truly appreciated. Additionally, none of this would have been possible today without the hard work and collaborative nature of the 2026 statewide convening planning team. This year's team had over 25 members who began coming together in July of 2025 and was highly diverse and included youth and parents with lived expertise in family serving systems, tribal consultants, child abuse prevention councils, family resource centers, state and county departments, and leads for comprehensive prevention plan teams. That's just to name a few. Our group truly embodied the spirit and impact that exists when all voices build the table together with the opportunity to be heard and their ideas implemented. And now I'd like to introduce Elisa Moore, my co-lead for Strategies TA and also my fellow MC for today. Welcome, Elisa.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's great to see everybody here today. We are so excited to share our convening with you this year. And like Sarah said, we've had over 25 planning partners, and we've spent about 9 months pulling this together, and we're super excited about what you're going to experience over the next couple of days. So I'm Elisa Moore, Senior Program Manager with Strategies Technical Assistance, located at the Child Abuse Prevention Center in Sacramento. We'd like to share a little bit about our work with Strategies Technical Assistance. Strategies TA moves prevention forward in California by building connections and capacities both locally and statewide. We provide facilitation, strategic planning, and network development support for collaborative groups to create lasting change to improve community and family well-being. So how do we do this? We build capacity for community pathways by facilitating collaborative efforts and strategic planning, by elevating community voice and sustaining collaboration, by hosting communities of practice, and we build statewide connections through supporting the CalPrevent statewide networking platform, which you'll hear about shortly, the statewide Child Abuse Prevention Council Network, the California Family Resource Association, and this annual convening, among other things. So for some housekeeping this morning before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. The main session of our convening is hosted as a Zoom webinar. Due to the large size of our webinar, the camera and mic functions are disabled. However, today's workshops will be hosted as Zoom meetings where you'll be able to use your camera and mic to engage with presenters. Please use the Q&A feature located on the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen for content-related questions, and use the Zoom chat for tech-related needs. A full list of today's workshops is in the chat. Workshop presentation materials can be found under each workshop session under the Sessions tab. This event is being recorded in whole and will be shared likely next week. The slide deck and all other materials are located in the Resources tab under the Documents on the Whova webpage and app. Attendees will have access to the materials on Whova for 3 months after the event ends. In terms of emojis and reactions, we know they can be a little distracting sometimes when we have this many people. So please adjust the settings for the reactions and emojis intensity if it feels distracting for you. You can do this on your Zoom toolbar by clicking on Reactions and changing the intensity from full to medium or to low. Lastly, please remember to complete the evaluation survey at the end of each day to help our planning for next year. And finally, a recap for Whova, navigating Whova. Keep the browser with the Whova dashboard open throughout the entire event. This is how you'll access the main session and different workshop sessions. If you accidentally exit the browser with the Whova dashboard, please rejoin by going to the Whova website and signing back in. During transitions to workshop sessions, you'll leave this main Zoom webinar session by clicking on Agenda, then Sessions on the left side column of the Whova dashboard. Scroll down and you'll see the list of sessions. Click on the workshop session you'd like to join. And lastly, find documents shared during the event under the Resources tab. And I'll pass it on to Kristen and Sarah.
Thank you, Elisa, so much. So, similar to last year, in trying our best to remain a trauma-informed event, the planning team decided to offer emotional support through three wonderful licensed clinicians, and that would be Jamie Bardacki, Melissa Corden, and Amy Kay. Amy Kay will be providing support in American Sign Language for those who need it. And to highlight a long-term partner, Amy is a member of the Advocacy Council for Allies of Deaf Children, or ACADC, and works for an organization in Los Angeles called 5 Acres, which provides specialty mental health services in English, Spanish, and has the only deaf services program in LA County. They provide therapeutic services in American Sign Language to deaf and hard of hearing children ages birth to 20, teenagers, and adults across Los Angeles. Lastly, we recognize many people here have been impacted by trauma and family violence and encourage you to call the number on the screen you'll see to be connected to one of our clinicians should difficult feelings arise for you at any point in the event. Next slide. Wonderful, thank you. So I also have the pleasure of getting to share the event purpose with you, which was developed by the 2026 Statewide Convening Planning Team. So you'll see the 2026 Statewide Collaborative Prevention Convening is an opportunity for prevention teams to build on meaningful change by deepening partnerships, uplifting community-led strategies, sharing leadership with lived experts and tribal nations, and aligning prevention efforts across California's ecosystems. So thank you, team. As a reminder, if you have any questions on the content today, please put those questions in the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. Our team will try and answer all the questions to support your learning as best as we possibly can. So as you'll see here, we have our agenda for today. So I won't read through the agenda, through the whole thing, but you do have it in Whova. But I want to point out that we will have 2 breaks, one happening at 10:50 a.m. for 10 minutes, and one happening again at 2:10 p.m. for about 15 minutes. And then we'll have lunch today from 12 to 12:45. All right, next slide. Okay, this is one of my favorites. So we get a chance to hear from you all. Who's in the room? So in a few minutes, a poll is going to pop up. And if you can please tell us which of the following most closely describes your affinity group. Would that be Child Abuse Prevention Councils, CAPCs, Child Welfare Services, maybe behavioral health or mental health, probation, a state agency or department, for example, CDSS or DHCS, education, tribal representatives and or tribal organization, a community-based organization, a parent or youth with lived expertise, or if you find that you don't really fall into any of these affinity groups, that is okay. Please just select other and enter into the chat and tell us. All right, so I think that poll should launch shortly if it hasn't already. I see, and people are putting into the chat. Thank you. First 5, managed care plans, regional centers, healthcare, childcare. Yes, thank you. Behavioral health, our faith-based partners. Thank you. Children's clinics, United Way. All right. I think we've got probably a good chunk of folks who have answered. So, team, whenever you're ready, if you're able to pull up the results of that poll, that would be great. Okay. So it looks like so far, which not surprising, our 4E partners, Child Welfare Services, is about 25% of those who have answered so far, or maybe it's closed out. Oh, and equally, our community-based organizations are very well represented here today. Fabulous. We have a number of partners from behavioral health, child abuse prevention councils, followed by other, which I appreciate folks are putting that in the chat, family resource centers. We have some parents and youth with lived expertise, tribal representatives or consultants, and education as well. So thank you folks so much for doing that. I think it really helps for all of us to understand better who's with us. So thank you for sharing. And now I'd like to turn it over to Lydia Marquez, our program supervisor with Strategies TA at All for Kids. Welcome, Lydia.
Good morning, everyone. We gather today in California on the ancestral lands of over 100 tribes with a shared purpose to protect children and strengthen families. As we do this work, we acknowledge the many communities whose labor, love, and resilience have shaped our state and continue to enrich it. We recognize the profound contributions of African Americans whose strength and leadership, despite generations of injustice and inequity, have helped build the social, cultural, and civic fabric of our communities. We also honor sovereign tribes, the original stewards of the land, and their enduring strength through historic displacement and systemic challenges. We support their ongoing efforts to keep tribal families together through culturally supportive practices. We also acknowledge immigrants, women, and other historically marginalized communities whose care work, advocacy, and organizing have sustained families and advanced justice across California. Child abuse prevention requires us to confront hard truths. We know that systemic inequities, poverty, racism, and a lack of access to resources place disproportionate stress on families, particularly African Americans and Native Americans. Prevention is not only about responding to harm, it is about building conditions where families have what they need to thrive, economic stability, community support, culturally responsive services, and policies rooted in dignity and equity. As we reflect on the past and look forward towards the future, we commit to advancing equitable and compassionate systems that uplift children and caregivers alike. We pledge to work collaboratively across sectors to dismantle barriers, center community voices, and ensure that every child in California grows up safe and supported and valued. Together, let us honor the labor of those who have come before us and strengthen our shared responsibility to create a future where all children and families can flourish. And now I will pass it over to Kristen Gast.
Thank you for this powerful acknowledgement, Lydia. We also want to invite you all to join Statewide Connect on CalPrevents. CalPrevents is an online networking and connecting site for professionals and lived experts in California working on child abuse prevention and family strengthening. It's funded by the Office of Child Abuse Prevention and administered by Strategies Technical Assistance, and it is always free to have a space and to be a member. CalPrevents currently has over 20 spaces and over 1,000 members who are collaborating, connecting, and sharing resources with a goal of building strong prevention systems, both locally and statewide. We invite you to join Statewide Connect, which is our statewide space open to all prevention professionals and lived experts across California. There, prevention partners from across California share trainings, resources, and opportunities. You can click the link I'll put in the chat or scan the QR code on the screen to join. If you want to learn more or are interested in starting your own space, you can email us at info@strategiesta.org. And now I'll pass it to our planning team partners, Roger De Leon and Yvette Baptiste.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Yvette here. I am a lived expert working at an FRC partnered with Haluna Health in Eastern LA. And I'm here to welcome you and tell you that this year's planning team included more lived experts, youth, and diverse partners than ever before. For the past 8 months, the planning team has met at least twice a month to carefully curate content. Say that carefully 3 times for this 2-day event, ensuring input from all interested key partners. We took on the challenge of really crafting relevant and engaging content that reflects the diverse needs of California counties and their communities. And we greatly hope you find the next 2 days thought-provoking and useful for your work every day. We recognize the importance of centering those most impacted by the child welfare system, particularly African Americans and tribal lived experts. Their involvement in prevention work must be lifted up with active roles in decision making and co-creation, which is very difficult, we know, and implementation. As a planning team, we acknowledge that we must deepen our efforts to engage disproportionately represented families at every stage of the planning process, even more than we already have. And we encourage the local county prevention teams to make that same commitment in your prevention efforts. So thank you. Roger?
Thank you, Yvette. Once again, it is a privilege to be here and to be a part of this planning committee. And so to each of you who played a role in shaping this event, thank you. Your selflessness, passion, connections, and firsthand experience made it possible for us to bring so many incredible workshops and programs to life over these next 2 days. Your voice added depth to our conversations, helped us reach new communities, and made this gathering stronger. Just look around at the 1,000+ people here. Your time, energy, and dedication mean the world to us. We truly couldn't do this without you. We are deeply grateful to each and every one of you for being here. Your participation and unwavering commitment to supporting children and families inspire us to keep doing the work. Your presence shows the power of a community that cares, and we are honored to share this journey with you. Thank you for making a difference. And with that, I believe I have the privilege of introducing our first speaker of the day. David Swanson Hollinger, which is also a friend, was appointed Chief Deputy Director, Children and Families Program at the California Department of Social Services in January 2025. David brings more than 30 years of experience in the area of system integration, strategic planning, program development, policy making, and advocacy in health and human services, and approaches to strengthen public and private systems to address historical inequities and promote individual and family wellness. David spent 11 years with Children and Family Services, CFS, at the Ventura County Human Services Agency. For 9 years, he co-chaired the Prevention and Early Intervention Committee of the California Child Welfare Council. Prior to CFS, David served in leadership roles, responsible for strategic planning and program development in county behavioral health for community-based organizations and in medical managed care. He began his career as social worker, primarily serving immigrant families impacted by child abuse, neglect, and significant medical challenges. David has master's degrees in social welfare and in public health from the University of California, Los Angeles. It is my privilege to introduce my esteemed colleague and friend, David Swanson Hollinger.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's so good to see you and see so many people who I've worked with over the years in this work. So really happy to be here. And as Roger said, I'm Chief Deputy Director at CDSS and honored to be here to welcome you on behalf of the department. It's really exciting to see the more than what do we have, 842 I'm seeing participants in attendance, and it just shows that collective commitment of all of you to lift up prevention and the well-being of children, youth, and families. It's also exciting. I know many of us were part of the first convening of this kind back, gosh, 6, 7, 8 years ago in San Diego, and it's incredible to see how far this work has come in those few years. The work that you're going to do over the next few days during the convening and that you're doing every day, it's an integral part of the state's vision for an accessible and integrated system that supports families and communities to provide safe, stable, and nurturing environments for children and youth. In my current role at CDSS, I'm thrilled to be able to carry on prevention work that's so central to child, youth, and family well-being, to kin first culture, and to the work that's championed by our department and to so many of you as partners in this work. Our collective focus is on strengthening prevention approaches and building a structure that supports families to access meaningful supports in their own communities before challenges escalate into formal system involvement. So this includes investments in concrete supports and safety net programs such as CalWorks, CalFresh, and childcare. Implementation of strategies to decrease disproportionality and disparities, especially among Black, African American, and Native American children and youth. The advancement of a kin-first culture through services and supports that strengthen connections and belonging to children, youth, and their families that touch the child welfare system, and especially the support of communities to support and lift up children, youth, and families, such as through the Family First Prevention Services Program and the development of community pathways. The transformation towards which we are all driving cannot happen without our continued work together. I want to extend a special appreciation to our partners and consultants at the Child and Family Policy Institute of California, the California Training Institute, Strategies TA, Casey Family Programs, and Chapin Hall, as well as the additional consultants who are supporting counties and tribes in this work. We celebrate the 58 comprehensive prevention planning teams that are making great progress towards implementing local prevention and well-being programs. We especially want to commend our community and our tribal partners, as well as the many here with lived expertise, as we heard a moment ago, for centering us on what matters most for children, families, and communities, and for helping to guide us in the development and implementation of the Family First Prevention Services Program and Pathways to Prevention. During the convening, you'll hear examples of successes in community engagement, implementation of community pathways, and innovation in prevention practices from several of the comprehensive prevention planning teams and their cross-sector partners during the workshops today and throughout the day tomorrow. As you know, community pathways create clear, trusted connections outside of formal child protection involvement, so community providers can support families to access the resources they need to keep children safe and thriving, and families thriving together. We're thrilled that this work will culminate in the ability of local child welfare agencies, probation departments, and community partners to begin providing Title IV funded prevention services to children, youth, and families in just 7 months, with the launch of the CARES system in October. We are working to keep families together not only by creating these pathways for them to get the services and resources they need, but also by addressing the challenges with mandated reporting that can lead to unnecessary reporting and over-reporting. Narrowing the front door to the child protection system is an essential part of disrupting disproportionality in child welfare involvement, especially for African American and Native American families. CDSS has worked alongside the Child Welfare Council's Prevention and Early Intervention Committee, and I see a whole bunch of you on the call today, to advance system transformation efforts by supporting the work of the Mandated Reporting Advisory Committee, launched in May 2025. This committee is tasked to lead statewide implementation of the mandated reporting to community supporting task force's 14 recommendations and to identify and engage cross-system and community partners necessary to carry out this work. The task force's recommendations include implementing Assembly Bill 2085, which narrows the definition of general neglect, building a robust community pathway infrastructure, redesigning and standardizing mandated reporter training, and building a data framework for prevention so we have evidence that the work we are doing is successful. At CDSS, our focus is on strengthening the prevention and child, youth, and family well-being infrastructure by working with local agencies and community-based organizations to create pathways for families to access meaningful support in their own communities that promote child safety and build family resilience. I hope this convening gives you the opportunity to take time out of your busy work schedules and connect with partners across disciplines and communities. We urge you to continue to make and share space for building relationships and trust with lived experts, community partners, and tribal representatives to better understand what families and communities need to thrive and to advance building out sustainable community pathways. We also encourage you to seek out and leverage other funding streams which can support the expansion of current prevention programs. By collaborating with other organizations and across systems of care, we can leverage resources and networks to create stronger and more impactful initiatives. These partnerships can expand your reach and help sustain prevention and child and family well-being programs. So finally, thank you for your commitment and dedication to transforming family-serving systems and creating pathways to a family and child well-being system. This investment will improve the lives of children, youth, caregivers, families, and communities. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David. I'd like to introduce Valerie Frost, who is our keynote speaker for today. Valerie is an ethical engagement strategist and systems change leader focused on bridging lived expertise with institutional decision-making in child welfare and prevention systems. Drawing on both her lived experience as an impacted parent and her systems level expertise, Valerie supports jurisdictions and organizations in strengthening family-centered practice, authentic engagement, and implementation strategies that move beyond compliance towards meaningful partnership. Her work centers on translating lived insight into practical tools that help systems rethink power, readiness, and accountability. She is the creator of Ethical Engagement Framework, host of Community Insight podcast, and a TEDx speaker whose talk, Authority is Lived, Not Given, explores how credibility and leadership emerge from lived experience. Valerie's work has been featured in national conversations on prevention, lived expertise, and systems transformation, and she regularly advises organizations and leaders seeking to align policy, practice, and community voice in sustainable ways. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you. I love the energy here. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I am Valerie Frost, and I'm really glad to be with you all as you prepare for county level planning. So I was going to do an introduction. You just learned a little bit about me, so I will skip over that. Just very quickly, that I work for Sunlight, and Sunlight connects families and professionals in the child welfare system with innovative technology tools that improve communication and outcomes. And as mentioned, I'm also the host of Community Insight, a podcast about the family well-being movement. Feel free to look that up on Apple or Spotify. It's Community INSITE. And please stay tuned. TEDx will be live in less than a week. So please watch, like, share with everyone you know. But it was submitted yesterday to TEDx to be uploaded, so within 5 to 7 days. But I do want to start with this work, this prevention work, because this isn't theoretical to me. This is what I have lived and continue to live every day. I know the power of relationship and supportive services. I have also directly experienced the consequences of help seeking gone wrong. So I'm here to help caring professionals avoid pitfalls that break relationship and lead to disengagement or worse, harm. So, uh, and if someone wants to type, thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so in the next 25 minutes or so, however much time we have left, I am going to do three things. Name what ethical engagement really signals, translate it into concrete decisions that you can make this week, and leave you with specific questions you can take straight into planning conversations. So before I go any further, I would love if you would just drop one word in the chat. When families disengage, what is usually underneath it? Trust, timing, fear, confusion, burnout, history, power, anything. One word for why families disengage. See a lot of themes here. Trust, trauma, fear, stigma, judgment. Keep it coming, and we can move on to the next slide here. All right, so prevention. Prevention doesn't fail because people don't care. I genuinely believe everyone is here to do good work. Most humans care about other humans. It struggles when relational conditions are left to chance. So families experience prevention through interactions, tone, follow through, and whether power is shared in real ways. So when I say relationship-centered prevention, I'm not talking about being kind. It's easy to be nice. I'm talking about whether your work is structurally built to generate trust, partnership, and sustained engagement over time. Okay, we can move to next slide. More engagement here. I'm trying to model here. So love for this to be as interactive as possible and for everyone to really feel a part of this conversation because this is not me talking at you. This is us together in partnership figuring this out. So I want to pause here for 20 seconds and hear from you again. Thank you for chat engagement. Now we're going to launch a quick poll. So here we go. Poll has popped up. All right, so quick check here. Where do you see the greatest opportunity to strengthen relationship-centered prevention right now? And this will help us calibrate the room and it helps you see where collective energy sits. All right, I can't see the poll, so whenever it looks like we've got responses here.
We have about 73%. So we'll wait about maybe 10 more seconds and we'll close the poll.
All right, sounds good. So where do you see the greatest opportunity to strengthen relationship-centered prevention in your work right now?
All right.
Okay. Trust again. That was the one word, and it seems like trust is coming up. That's a theme. So this is great. Keep those results in mind. Please look at everyone's responses because everything we talk about today connects back to these themes. So thank you all for engaging with the poll. And we can move to the next slide. All right, so across prevention initiatives, you will see the same words in proposals: parent voice, community engagement, lived expertise, collaboration. And that language is really becoming table stakes. The differentiator is not whether you list engagement activities, it's whether your plan signals readiness to engage ethically. Readiness is what predicts whether partnerships will hold under stress, whether families will stay engaged, and whether outcomes will last. All right, next slide. So most systems have good intentions, but families don't experience intentions, they experience interactions, right? And those interactions come from our actions, right? So when we call what we call engagement, it can feel like confusion or risk to families, especially when power is uneven. And I can give you all a lived example just from this morning. I got an email. So I'm here in Kentucky, you all. I got an email from Commonwealth of Kentucky to check my public assistance benefits. And again, that's engagement, that's outreach. They're giving me information. But because it said, check your benefits from the state, I experienced confusion. I experienced fear. I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know if my benefits were getting cut off. And when I went to check it, it was a helpful tax tip for the earned income tax credit. So again, the intention was to give helpful information, but how I received it, because the email subject line was not specific enough, was I don't know what this is and how this is happening, right? So the gap between intention and experience is where trust is built or broken. And the opportunity in that gap is ethical engagement. All right, next slide. Okay, so let's have a shared definition. When I say ethical engagement, I mean engagement that protects people while producing better results. It's engagement where families are not treated like inputs. It's not symbolic. It's built for real partnership, real consent, and real follow through. Ethical engagement is what allows prevention efforts to be community driven instead of institution directed. So again, it's about protection, and it's about where is it coming from, the community up or top down. All right, so next slide. Okay, so I'm going to give you a simple list of readiness signals you can use like a lens. So if you communicate these 4 things in planning, practice, and proposals, you will strengthen trust and strengthen funding alignment. So here we have power, and we have power, protection, proof, and pathway. Power is, where does decision making actually live? And how will families shape real choices? So power. And I saw power come up in the chat as some of your all's one word. So where does decision making actually live? Protection. What safeguards exist so families can participate without harm, retaliation, or reputational risk? Proof. How do you know engagement is working beyond attendance, quotes, and advisory lists. And pathway, what happens after families share input? Who closes the loop? And what changes because of it? So this shows up a lot in surveys. How many times does someone do a survey and they don't see the report that comes of it, and they don't know what action steps are going to follow? Did my voice matter? Was it used? All right, so if your counties, your planning sessions can answer these 4 questions clearly, you're not just doing engagement. You are signaling readiness for sustainable prevention. All right, next slide. So here's what ethical engagement looks like in practice before anyone is invited into a room. So you want to be explicit about what decisions families can influence. Name the power differential. Okay, so name all of that ahead of time. Say what is not on the table. Just clarity, be honest. Clarify the pathway from input to action. So you're going to give us this information, or we will discuss this together. And from here, this will happen. And this is how you will know. And this is how we will measure success. Assign responsibility for follow through. This is how you build trust before a single listening session happens. And trust has been a theme. Trust starts before the invitation comes out. Clarity is respect. And people don't disengage because they don't care. They disengage when expectations are unclear. So I hear a lot of institutions and groups say, families won't come, they won't engage. All behavior is communication. So is it that families won't engage, or do they not feel the structure is prepared for their engagement? So just a little switch there. Next slide. Okay, so language here. Language signals mental models. I just modeled one for you right now. I just did a switch, and we have several here on the slide. So small shifts can change how workers think and how families feel and what decisions actually get made. So if you want prevention to be relationship centered, your language has to reflect context, dignity, and reality. And really, it's so subtle and it's so small. Are you judging? That judgment was a word here. Are you judging someone for their circumstances? Is someone a moral failure, or did the community fail to provide services and support to someone? Does someone not belong, or are they not being included? Just how do your words communicate what you're unconsciously, because a lot of bias is unconscious. What are your words? How are they communicating whether someone matters and whether their voice is really important? All right, next slide here. Okay, I love to leave people with tools. Here is your gift for planning. If your teams can work through these questions honestly, you will leave with a stronger plan, a clear engagement strategy, and a story that funders can trust. This is what moves you from collaboration to transformation. And your conversations will immediately move deeper. So again, these are covering all of protection and power and proof and all of the things that we named. And this is how you can really measure that, and you can do a self-assessment. So these are planning accelerators. Again, this is a tool, and I hope that you all find this helpful. All right, next slide. All right, so more assignments here. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. My background is education. So love to give homework, love to give tools. But we have here 3. Pick one. Loop closure sprint. Close the loop with families within 30 days. So if they give any type of feedback, if they have a question, if you have an event, community engagement event, if you do a survey, make sure there's clearly defined who is going to close this loop And when are they going to do so? And how? So, another exercise here is power map. Name where decisions sit and what can be shared. And also think about being honest about that. We want to bring you together. We want to co-create solutions. Ultimately, it does have to go to this person to be the final decision maker. Name that up front. People don't want perfection, they just want honesty. Um, and then we have a barrier audit. Identify who can't engage and remove one barrier. On this call right now, numerous barriers you all have accounted for. We have interpretation, we have languages, we've done a land acknowledgement. I mean, numerous ways. Keep thinking. Who else is not here and why are they not here right now? What can we do to be even more inclusive? Because those are the people that need to be heard the most, the ones that can't make it. So, I want to keep this actionable. I want every county team, please pick one 30-day experiment. Just one concrete move that proves readiness and strengthens trust, right? Loop closure is usually the fastest trust builder. Power mapping is the clearest readiness signal, and barrier audits strengthen equity immediately. So don't let this be a giant initiative, but just leave with one experiment. All right, next slide. So engagement language is everywhere. Readiness is rarer, right? I think everyone or mostly everyone comes with good intentions again, but there tends to be a gap between intent and impact. And we know this. We know that families need more, right? Or they need something different. Otherwise, everyone would be flourishing. So we know there is a gap, right? And readiness is a barrier to filling that gap between intention to impact. But ethical engagement is how prevention becomes sustainable, community-driven, and real. And I am so excited for what you all build and what you all plan and come together with after the end of this entire conference. And I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing and staying committed to prevention that lasts. All right, next slide here. All right, so we are done with the content. I want to invite you all to stay connected. If you're interested, you can find me on social media, on my website, send me an email. Just a reminder again, I host a podcast. We have episodes come out every other week. So we just had one come out last week, so there'll be another one next week. And within 7 days, my TEDx Authority is Lived, Not Given will be on YouTube. And just a quick plug for that, I really want to invite people to examine expertise. Who do you consider an expert and why? And really understand the impact and the value that those who are living the consequences of the decisions that you make. I saw a question in chat and got distracted. Just understand those that are living the consequences really have value and insight and immediacy that maybe other people may not have if they are able to clock out or they are able to walk away from the decision and it doesn't come back to them and their life and their family and other people like them. So I encourage you all to listen. I have actionable steps in there as well. Again, the podcast is Community Insight, INSITE. You can also find it on thrivingfamilysaferchildren.org website on the podcast tab. But again, I love what you all are doing. I love the energy here. I am all about prevention. If you've heard anything or you look me up, my origin story does come from my help seeking. It came from, again, a lack of engagement while I was help seeking. And what I really want to see is more people examining their readiness and questioning and constantly being curious about how the end user is experiencing engagement and how do they create feedback loops so that they can hear what the end user says so that we can all have the impact that we would like to have in this work, and we can have communities that are thriving and flourishing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Valerie. I can't wait to hear your podcast. That was an amazing keynote presentation. We truly appreciate your partnership and lasting commitment to this prevention work. My name is Janelle Muncaster, and I'm a parent with lived experience navigating the child welfare system for over a decade now. Over the past several months, I've had the honor of serving as a co-lead for the community and tribal engagement work group, helping plan and shape the content that you'll experience today at our 2026 statewide convening. I now have the distinct pleasure of transitioning us. Sorry, I got distracted by the slides. I have the distinct pleasure of transitioning us to learning from our incredible lived expert panel. Our panelists have been working diligently to bring informative and heartfelt content with the hope of assisting county prevention teams with more effective and authentic engagement. Now I just want to read a small little statement. If you could go to the next slide, please. We acknowledge that lived experts are often called upon to share their experiences and input in system change work. The community and tribal work group honor our panelists' experience as inherently valid without the need for further proof. So we ask that participants engage mindfully in the chat and refrain from using any clinical labels or asking intrusive questions about their experiences. We ask that you listen actively to the panelists to learn more how systems could be more supportive and less harmful. And now I'd like to introduce our panel moderator, Aliana Montevirgin. Aliana is a graduate student pursuing her master's degree in public administration at California State University, East Bay. She's also a lead YEP ambassador for 5 different counties in the state of California. She was a statewide delegate for the National Foster Youth Institute for 2025, working with Foster Youth Cactus. She's also a part of the California Youth Connection for the County of Contra Costa. Welcome, Ollie.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Janelle. Hello, everybody, and good morning, and welcome to the 2026 Statewide Collaborative Convention Convening. Again, my name is Aliana Montevirgin. I am representing the Child and Family Policy Institute of California as a lead YEP ambassador, as someone with lived experiences. I'm honored to serve as your moderator for today's session, and we are here to engage in what I believe is the most critical conversation of this convening. Today, we are joined by a panel of lived experts, individuals who have navigated the complexities of the foster care system here in California. They aren't just sharing their history, they are here to share their insights or what a truly supportive system should look like. So let's go ahead and introduce our panelists for today. So starting us off, we have Angelica Montevirgin. Angelica is a former foster youth with lived experiences of AB 12 and kinship care, and is currently a YEP ambassador for Santa Clara County through CFPIC. Angelica also is a lead clinical research coordinator for UCSF for multiple sclerosis populations. Angelica is currently finishing her master's in psychology at Pepperdine and planning to pursue a clinical psychology PhD to focus on disability and marginalized populations. Secondly, we have Janelle. Janelle Agallo is a senior at California State University, Channel Islands, pursuing a bachelor's degree in psychology and preparing to continue her education with a master's in social work. She is deeply committed to uplifting youth voices and advocating for meaningful system change. Janelle brings lived experience to leadership, having served as a youth representative on panels and spoken at conferences. Through her work, she strives to create spaces where youth feel heard, valued, and empowered to shape the policies and programs that impact their lives. And lastly, we have Michael Miser. He is a former foster youth, the youngest of 9 siblings, a U.S. Navy veteran with multiple active duty deployments, and a peer mentor for current and former foster youth. He is currently in his final semester studying political science and philosophy at Cal Poly Panoma. When he is not advocating, he spends time snowboarding, playing tennis, or reading philosophy and history. So, to our panelists, thank you so much for being here, for your vulnerability and your leadership. To our audience, I invite you to listen, not just with your notebooks, but being open-minded to these challenges we are going to discuss. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm assuming that the questions were going to be up. Let's start off with the first question, redefining support. We often talk about services in our professional settings, serving youth in care. But from your perspective as a panelist sitting in the middle of it, what does it mean to actually feel supported by the system? What were those moments where it felt like the system was working with you rather than at you? So starting us off, Angelica.
Thank you. So I feel like feeling supported by a system means being treated like a whole person. It's not just a case file or a placement number. Having people that take the time to really listen, explain things clearly, and involve you in the decisions about your own life. It gives you the sense of control and choice. During transitions like aging out through AB 12, support to me was consistency and community, transparency, and real preparation for what comes next, especially around housing, education, and that type of stability. It also means not being left to figure things out alone during such critical times of growing. A big part of feeling supported is also having consistent relationships, especially with therapists and social workers. Not having to constantly retell your own story helps reduce this re-traumatization that can happen and allows us to like trust and build that over time. The continuity creates that sense of safety and makes it easier to talk about the really hard things that happen in foster care. At its core, I think support is about dignity and being believed, being seen for your strengths and your potential, and not just your needs or your past experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelica, for sharing with us what you feel like is redefining support, being treated as a whole person and being seen beyond your own case file, and involving foster youth in those life-changing decisions. So thank you so much, Angelica. And then moving next, Janelle, would you like to share next?
Thank you, Aliana, for the question. I feel like feeling supported by a system means consistency. For me, consistency means not having to retell my story over and over again to new people. Every time someone new I don't know comes in and asks me to start from the beginning, it feels exhausting. My story is personal and not exactly fun to retell, so repeating it again and again makes it feel like no one is listening or learning about me as a person. Consistency also means that the people who work with me take the time to remember what I have shared before. When a person remembers details about my experiences, it shows that they paid attention to what I've said. It makes me feel like I matter. When people forget important parts about me or mix me up with another client, it feels discouraging and makes it harder to trust the support that's being offered. Feeling supported also means feeling heard. It's not just about someone listening while I talk, but for someone to actually take my words seriously and consider what I say. I know my experiences and I know my needs, so when people take the time to truly hear me, it helps knowing maybe I can have a say in what happens to me. Lastly, feeling supported means receiving the help that I say I need, not just the help that others assume I need. When people take the time to listen, remember, and respond to what's actually being asked, it helps create an environment where trust can grow and healing can begin. Thank you.
Janelle, what a wonderful answer. You had mentioned consistency, not needing to retell your story. It's like opening old wounds, right? It's important for those who are supporting youth in care to remember our stories. And like you had mentioned, um, helping you and not just assuming the need that you need. So moving forward, Michael.
Hello, good morning, y'all. For me, support it was really quite simple. Um, it was really, throughout care, I consistently just felt behind my peers I would meet at like the playground or wherever, and I knew they just had different access to different resources. They were in like, music classes and so on, that I was like, I didn't know that was an option. Um, So support, it grew to just feeling like when I go to someone, my social worker or anyone, if they could just point me in the right direction. So if like there is ex any type of accessible program that could just put me on like somewhat of a equal playing field with my peers, I just, I entered the system around 6 and I stayed there until around 12. And during that whole time, I just didn't want to like grow up at half of the rate individuals with parents did. So for me, the support was really just like, you know, being able to go to someone like my peers would go to a parent and then be able to point me in like a quite simple direction, like, hey, maybe you can access a music class through this. Um, and then you could have that same cool conversation on the playground. So all I really ever wanted was, a little nudge in the right direction. And, that came with some accessibility hurdles through um, my ability to learn to read and so on. But at the end of the day, all support ever really looked like to me was access. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And what an amazing answer. You said support for you looked like a support system pointing you into the right direction to accessible resources. So thank you guys so much for answering the first question. So moving forward, navigating these systems require a lot of navigation most people never have to learn. So looking back, what strengths did you discover in yourself or perhaps in your family along the way that you might not have recognized at that time? Angelica?
Thank you. Um, I think one of the biggest strengths that I discovered in myself and also for other foster youth is, how much we have this built resilience. We learn to adapt and keep moving forward when things are really hard. I also developed a lot of self-advocacy skills along the way. It's very hard, but I think when we're navigating systems that aren't always the easiest to understand, environments that are always changing, you have to develop that. And even as an older sister, I didn't really just learn how to advocate for myself, but also for my little siblings. I grew into this strong advocate and leader within my family and kind of developed into almost a co-parent. They played a really big role in shaping me into the advocate that I am today. Coming from a neurodiverse family with experiences of trauma, I also come to recognize the depth of compassion and empathy that I bring into my communities. Through my higher education, I got to develop this understanding of how systems like child welfare, education, healthcare, it impacts people and can affect things over time. I've learned that these systems can either create opportunities or reinforce barriers. It shapes these long-term outcomes like stability, health, and access to resources, like Michael was discussing. And working in spaces with underserved communities, disability populations, and communities that reflect my own intersectionality really helps me stay intentional to the work that I'm excited to contribute to, from this feeling of surviving to thriving. Thank you.
Angelica, what a great strength it is to have resilience. And you mentioned foster youth having to learn how to build resilience because of surviving and thriving is a necessity. So thank you so much. And then moving next, Janelle.
Thank you for this great question. I think that one of the biggest strengths I discovered in myself along the way, like Angelica, is resilience. I learned that I am stronger than I once thought. Life has given me so many challenges, and there were moments where things felt really difficult. But through those experiences, I realized that I have the ability to keep going even when things are hard. I learned that there really isn't anything that I cannot overcome. When life gets tough now, I remind myself that I've already faced difficult situations before and made it through them. That gives me the confidence to keep pushing forward until I get where I want to be because I know things can and will always get better. Another strength I discovered is independence. Over time, I learned how to stand up for myself and advocate for my own needs. I realized that my voice matters. Being able to speak up when something isn't right or when I need help or support is an important skill. It allows me to take an active role in my own life and decisions. Instead of staying silent, I've learned that it's okay to express how I feel and ask for what I need. I've also learned how to adapt. Throughout my life, I moved to so many different homes and attended so many different schools. At first, those changes could feel overwhelming, but they also helped me develop the ability to adjust to new situations. Each place meant meeting new people, learning new routines, and getting comfortable in unfamiliar environments. Over time, I found strength in being able to build new relationships and become familiar with new surroundings. Looking back, these experiences helped shape who I am today. They showed me that I'm resilient, independent, and adaptable. Even though the journey is not always easy, those strengths continue to help me move forward and face whatever challenges come next. Thank you.
Janelle, thank you so much for sharing your strengths with us. Resilience is a common trait where you conquer through your adversity. So I love how you also mentioned independence, self-advocating when your voice does matter. And then you also mentioned adapting, adjusting to new situations. Thank you, Janelle. Michael?
Thank you, Oleana. For me, I start with the second half of the question of what did my family learn? Earlier we mentioned I was the youngest of nine, but there were five of us who actually went through the system, and we were adopted into a family that already had four. So us five, we were remarkably close, no matter where we went. And that really just instilled, if we can't find answers to these resources, from others, within we did. So I was the youngest and I had older sisters and brothers, and we grew to just, be a really rowdy group of youngsters that, we would find our own answers. Um, Not that that was always ideal, but that's something that we took away. And till this day, we travel across the country to stay with each other, to lend a hand with childcare and so on, babysitting. Um, as far as within myself, kind of a very similar lesson to Janelle and Angelica of being a self like taught advocate. It guided me through the Navy, 6 years of being able to manage the largest bureaucracy in the world, the military, of advocating for younger sailors. During my time in boot camp, being able to be a leader and, have those hard discussions with individuals who are super intimidating and be like, hey, we need a little bit of help. So I'm pretty thankful that I'm able to also pass that on in my role as a peer mentor now to individuals still going through layers of the system. So, I learned community and that type of rough advocacy skills. Those come to mind, Oleana.
Michael, thank you for mentioning your family. I cannot imagine being a sibling of nine in a household. And for you, that meant depending on each other, trusting the process, and lending a hand. And you also mentioned being a self-taught advocate. And that is so important and vital for who you are today and also during your time in care. So thank you, everybody, for answering the second question. Moving on. Going on to our second to last question, After your time involved with services, is there anything about who you are now that you want people to know beyond the records? Angelica?
Yeah, so I feel like records often capture really hard, almost the hardest moments of somebody's life, but they rarely reflect who that person becomes. For me, I really love my family. I have two younger brothers, and Aliana is my little sister. Um, we grew up in a single parent household where our mom was trying to make ends meet and living paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes that was like not eating, um, living in a car at one point. During community college, I worked 4 jobs to help support my siblings and my family. Um, I think it makes me reflect on, people that are former foster youths aren't defined by these circumstances that brought them into care. We often carry a lot of different identities that can include our race, our culture, gender, socioeconomic background, and experiences within these systems. And those intersections really shape how we move through the world. That intersectionality isn't just a source of challenge, it's a source of strength. It gives us perspective, like we were talking about, this resilience and this ability to also understand and navigate diverse communities really meaningfully. So, my story definitely includes challenges, but it also includes this growth. It includes how I navigated education by myself and this commitment to like supporting others in such an intentional way. For me now, as an adult, I love living slowly, being honest with those around me, and being super silly with my friends and family because life is really so short. My experiences also allowed me to feel deeply and to present or be more present and also be more grateful about the things around me. But yeah, that's what I would want people to know. Thank you.
My sister Angelica was the highlight of support for me in care. And I'm just so thankful for you being here to share your experiences. And like you had mentioned, your case file isn't defining you as a person, it can also contribute to the intersectionalities that you present today. So thank you, Angelica. And then moving forward, Janelle.
Thank you. Something I would want people to know about me beyond the records is that my experiences do not define me as a person. My record would probably bring up the challenges or the situations that led me to even needing services in the first place. But what I think they don't always show is the growth and the effort and the progress that's happened over time. And because of that, I think it's important that people understand that I'm much more than what might be written in a file. If someone only looked at my record, they might assume that I haven't accomplished much or I'm simply a product of my environment that I grew up in. But that perspective doesn't really show who I am or how much I've worked to grow beyond those circumstances. In reality, my experiences have pushed me to grow stronger and more determined. I've learned how to advocate not only for myself, but also for others who may not always feel heard. Speaking up and using my voice is something that has become really important to me, especially when it comes to making sure people's experiences and needs are heard and taken seriously. I've also worked hard to put myself in spaces where I can contribute to change. I want to be someone who helps improve systems and creates better opportunities for others who may also be facing similar challenges to the ones that I've experienced. Another thing that I'm really proud of is the work that I put into my education. I've worked so hard to stay focused on my goals and to continue learning even when things got hard. Education has been very important to me because it represents opportunity, the ability to create a better future for myself, and breaking generational cycles. More than anything, I would want someone to see the person that I am today, not just the circumstances I've came from. I'm someone who has grown from my experiences, learned from them, learned from challenges, and continues to work towards building a better future for myself. Thank you.
Janelle, thank you so much for sharing. You mentioned the growth, the process that progress you built over time. And you also mentioned your education. You're representing already such a disproportionately low number of people who are graduating from college. And for you to be in that space of being a senior and being ready to graduate, that is amazing. So thank you, Janelle. And then Michael.
Hello again. I learned to be a pretty annoying individual throughout my time in care where I started to value mentorship a lot. I my first grade teacher, Mrs. Harker, my sixth grade history teacher, I call him Professor Sisk. Throughout my entire life, like I've grabbed on to individuals that would offer that help, and then I linger. And I'll utilize that friendship, that relationship for life as a form of mentorship. And that, I guess I'm emphasizing the importance of that single adult or single human stepping up and just kind of going slightly above and beyond. It echoes for generations. Those lessons I've learned from their kindness and generosity. It's something I apply every day in my life, and it's something I pass forward as well. Beyond that, thankfully, I've overcome a lot of the setbacks that I was super worried about, not being on an equal playing field. Now I compete everywhere I go. Whether it's tennis, snowboarding, academics, I feel supported largely because those individuals showed me what support looks like, and then I could apply it myself. But life is good beyond the system now. Like I'm thankful for what I did take from it, and I'm thankful to be able to help be here and try and breathe a little more life into it wherever I can. Thank you.
Michael, you're awesome. And you mentioned being grateful for the support from both professionals and that gave you a sense of belonging. And I'm glad to hear that you didn't allow your hardships to define you as a whole person. And you're a walking testament of how the adversity that you have gone through is now supporting you with supporting others as a mentor. So thank you, Michael. All right, moving on to our last question, our call to action. Right now, we have a room, a space full of professionals who are currently serving youth who are navigating the foster care system. What message do you want to give that audience to carry moving forward? Angelica?
So, systems have real power when it comes to shaping young people's lives. It brings compassion, patience, and consistency. I think these small moments of support have really long lasting impacts, even if they don't seem significant at the time. It reminds me of the countless times in therapy where my therapist just let me rest, teachers who listened and made space, and the mentors who spoke to the strengths that I didn't even know I had. Again, taking the time to slow down has really helped me stay grounded, and we can do hard things. It's really important to also see that foster youth are individuals with potential, not problems that are supposed to be managed. Systems that center around dignity, consistency, and transparency can help young people leaving care in a better position, not just to survive, like I was saying, but to truly thrive. And all the work that we do is vital. It's vital to creating strong young people that can help change this world. I think of the countless young people that I've already got to meet and the people that are in this room that are doing such meaningful work and changing the systems that we see today are really important. Being open to change is also really, really important. And being able to have lived experts in these conversations is what really, truly makes this a real transformation into things that can help build us up as a community. So thank you.
Angelica, you had such a phenomenal answer. And you had mentioned having compassion and showing consistency. Sometimes it's just important for you guys to have open ears and not always just providing advice and seeing the humanity and the dignity and transparency of supporting a youth who is navigating such a challenging time of their life. So thank you, Angelica. And then Janelle.
Thank you, Aliana. I think the message I would want this audience to carry forward is to remember that the people you work with are so much more than the situations that brought them into the system to start with. Behind every file is a person with their own strengths and potential. When people only focus on the information on a record, they can miss the growth and the effort that may not be written down anywhere. I also hope that people understand that the way people interact with youth really matters. Something that may seem so small, like remembering what someone mentioned about themselves, or following through on a small promise, like showing up on time, or simply just showing consistent care, can have such a lasting impact on someone's life. Those moments can help someone feel seen, respected, and valued, which can go such a long way. Your role has the power to influence how someone sees themselves and what they believe they can achieve. So when you take the time to look beyond records or files and truly see the person in front of you, you create the opportunity for them to be understood and potentially have real change. Thank you.
Janelle, thank you so much for sharing. Like you had mentioned, professionals' interactions with the youth and care matters. Showing up, just being a dependable adult. They can feel seen, they can feel heard. So thank you, Janelle. And last but not least, Michael.
Hello. Geez, I think the fact that we're here having this is really cool. You know, the fact that we do have any room for lived experience is rather neat. I think it fills in a lot of the gaps for, systems that lack nuanced takes and understandings, lack lived experience. So I think you all already know that message though, since we're here. I will say just from my last answer, the power of like a single individual and a single extra, like, how's your day? Or would you like to grab a coffee? Those things really do, they have major impact. They did on me, and they seem to have it on anyone else I run into. So if you do have like a little extra area, a little extra capacity for extending your kindness, I see a lot of kind faces. And that extra cup of Joe, maybe don't introduce the youth to coffee. I don't know. The populations everyone's working with, but you know, a Capri Sun or something. Those conversations and that time, it lingers in my brain every day of my life. So thanks for being here. That's where I'll end it there, Aliana. Thank you.
Michael, what a way to end it out with the mic drop. You mentioned just a simple checkup shows that you care. And I think that's a great way to put things into an explanation. Just showing up, listening, being an active listener shows that you can be a consistent adult and just showing that you could be dependable. So, with that being said, I want to thank our panelists for our time with you guys and your brilliance, your leadership skills. So you've reminded us today that your lived expertise isn't just a perspective, it is a professional necessity for systemic change. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you. That was such an incredible panel. I'm just overwhelmingly touched by your guys' wisdom and lived experience.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. What an absolutely inspiring panel. Words can't even express how much your expressions affected me. So my name is Leah Lujan. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation and also an ICWA consultant with Central California Training Academy. And I'm also had the pleasure of being part of the statewide convening planning team. I have the pleasure of introducing our next panel and transitioning. This courageous panel is entitled Rooted in Community. Parents, Leading Trust and Protection for Children. Our panelists have been working diligently to bring about thoughtful and relevant insight, along with heartfelt comments that really are here to help all of us have, I'm sorry, to help everyone have a hope of assisting county prevention teams with more effective and authentic lived expert engagement. And now I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Andrea Lewis. Can we have the next panel, next slide, please? Thank you. So Andrea Lewis is the Linkages Senior Project Associate for CFPIC. This is a statewide organization that advances the implementation of sound policy. Andrea had experience on both sides of the desk working for Riverside County for many years. Excuse me. She is committed to supporting the collaboration with CalWORKS and the child welfare system to facilitate and streamline early intervention and collaboration. And just getting to know Andrea, she is just a pleasure to work with, but she is an absolute advocate. So I would like to go ahead. I'm excited to hear from the panelists. Please, Andrea.
Thank you, Leah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important panel, Rooted in Community, Parents Leading Trust and Protection for Children. Today, our goal is to explore prevention strategies from multiple angles, highlighting how collaboration can drive meaningful transformation in our communities. I will guide our discussion by posing questions to each of our panelists, but please feel free to build on each other's insights and engage in a respectful, dynamic conversation throughout the session. We aim to keep our discussion interactive and inclusive. I encourage all panelists to share concise responses, allowing everyone the opportunity to contribute their expertise and perspectives. And now I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Tensha. Tensha Chavez is currently in graduate school at the University of Southern California in a dual degree program, Master of Public Administration and Master of Urban Planning, with a concentration in arts and culture. Previously, she worked for the California Native Vote Project as their strategic initiative outreach manager. She was born to the Meadow people and born for the Mexican people, Chicana. This is how she is Dene Navajo. Her homeland is on the Little Water Reservation within the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, but she was born and raised in Los Angeles County, where she's lived her entire life. Tavia. Tavia Woolley is a visionary leader, storyteller, and change maker, committed to building systems of equity, creativity, and belonging through community collaboration. She is the founder and executive director of Empower Them Collective, a systems change organization established in 2021 to address root causes of inequities such as systemic racism, economic injustice, and maternal health disparities across Los Angeles County. Under Tavia's leadership, Empower Them Collective has become a driving force for community transformation through its 5 pillars: policy, economic empowerment, advocacy, research, and leadership. Pearl. Empowering women, families, and youth to create sustainable change. Her own personal child loss helped to fuel her work in the African American Infant and Maternal Mortality Prevention Initiative in the Antelope Valley. She's recently launched the 661 Creator Space, a Black centering collaborative studio and cultural hub in the Antelope Valley. And Tiffany. Tiffany Dixon is Cherokee Seminole. Oh, I'm going to mess this up. I don't know why. Seminole, Mohawk, and Creek. She is a single mother of 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl, with lived experience. Tiffany is graduating with her AA at Ventura College and will continue to the nursing program. Tiffany and her family are heavily involved with American Indian Education Consortium through the Ventura Unified School District. Her and her family also participate in Owens Valley Career Development Center and Southern California Indian Resource, Inc. Each participant brings a distinct viewpoint. We welcome diverse and even contrasting opinions. It's through the richness of thought that we can uncover the most innovative approaches to prevention. With that foundation, let's begin exploring our first question. What inequities do you see showing up in access to prevention supports, and how should we address them? Tavia, would you share your thoughts on this?
Good morning. It's still morning. Yes, I would love to share my thoughts. Just want to make sure you all can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I love talking about this because this is one of the largest challenges I see is we have at times a plethora of services to offer the community in need, but oftentimes those services are underutilized. And so some of the challenges, specifically for the African American community, is a lack of cultural humility from the employees who work for the organization. I think there's a lot of times we're not talking about specific needs that the Black community needs that goes unlooked because it's not as large of a dynamic or as known of a dynamic as, say, being bilingual. So sometimes I like to communicate with organizations that although you are hiring staff who are bilingual because the needs of the community require individuals to speak multiple languages, which is super important, oftentimes, we don't address the anti-Blackness that some communities of color have towards Black community members, and therefore do not do as much of a due diligence to service and outreach to the Black community. In addition, just the other side of the coin I like to share is that a lot of organizations will have cultural humility training, right? But we don't address the root cause of why certain communities have challenges with the Black community. We don't address that a lot of us have been ingrained and trained to be hesitant and resistant to the Black community. And sometimes because of positional authority, just by virtue of working and having a title, that puts us in a power position over community members. And so we are not addressing the power imbalances. So those things prevent the Black community from having the same amount of access to services that at times are actually catered to them, which then therefore has an underutilization of the services, which causes a ripple effect for future programming and services. So I believe until we start to get very honest and transparent and reflective and our partnering brothers and sisters in other communities of the color regarding the anti-Blackness that's ingrained in our behaviors and thought processes, that's our own fault. I'm not saying anyone's necessarily doing it intentionally, but we're not talking about the elephant in the room. And until we do, we're going to continue to see the Black community get underserved and still can see these disparities show up in across the field.
Thank you, Tavia, for that. That's a lot of the conversation that we have in the background, right? African Americans do have a culture that seems to somewhat be ignored. And so I appreciate you highlighting that today. Tiffany, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. I feel that there's a lot of inequities and due to lived experiences through CPS, and I feel that they didn't support me in reaching out to OECDC and scared to do extra programs to help me in regaining custody of my children. The only thing I felt that I was supported with is American Indian education, but I feel that that's because the county had no control on not letting my children attend. And I also felt that they were more supportive towards, because my children are half Hispanic and half Native American, they were more supportive towards the Hispanic side, which that's not what I was. And I feel that the county should be more in all cultures. They should know like what programs are out there to help us, because I felt that when I was attending OVCDC, it helped me to realize what emotions I was going through, how to become a better parent, and also to the courts. It seemed like when they were trying to find out if I was Native American or there was a roll number for me, they tried, but they didn't try hard enough. Thank
So
you.
I hear you saying, see you as a whole person and meet you where you are and provide the needs based off of who you are and the needs that you have. I think that's what I heard from you, Tiffany.
Yes, and I felt that doing the programs through our culture, it was more help, like I got more out of it than the programs that the county had provided.
So opening up to other agencies, community-based organizations that could really cater to your cultural needs was very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Tinsha, what are your thoughts?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is a really, really, really hot, like a really good question, right? And there's so many inequities when it comes to the Native American community, like, and not only from lived experience, but from working in social services with, UAII and with, California Native Vote Project, doing political advocacy. There's a really deep disconnection with the Native community. A lot of mistrust from our people because of boarding schools, forced removal. Tiffany touched on the CPS, all that. So there's a lot of deep mistrust with my community. So my community, a lot of people will not go to government services to get the help that they need. So therefore, it's like a never ending like circle, right? We're constantly in and out, in and out, in and out of systems. So that's one thing. And another thing I see is, being on the social services side, is that our community is always the last people to be brought to the table. I can't tell you, like, towards the end of my career at working directly in social services with my community, we were barely being brought to the table on certain issues. Whereas, and it's so great that we see other BIPOC communities heavily into advocating for their communities. But when it came to ours, it's very, and I get it. At USC, I'm learning that it's a touchy subject to deal with Native communities because a lot of people don't want to, kind of like they don't want to be disrespectful. And so it's just bringing us to the table, asking us what we need, but also giving us a fair amount of voice in order to speak what we need for our people. So, like, we need to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on. And Tiffany touched on it. For myself, when I got clean and sober, it took my community to help me, right? I had a deep mistrust for government systems. So when I went to my own community to help me, I surrendered, and here I am 8 years later, right? But those are the different things that I see as inequities not being brought to the table. Lack of funding, so much lack of funding. And for our community, like, you only in LA County, you only have maybe like, I would say three is not, maybe four NGOs are nonprofits that work directly with their community, and we're spread all over the county. So you can imagine there's something in Palmdale that will help the Lancaster, Palmdale, Antelope Valley area. Then you have downtown LA, and that's supposed to like help everybody in that area. And a lot of people don't have transportation to get to these services, so then they just go without it, right? So those are different things that I see.
Thank you, Tinsha. And you are on fire this morning. I appreciate all of that
Let's
feedback.
go, let's go. I gotta speak up for my people.
But I will say that I need you to slow down a little bit for the interpreters and for the ASL. So
All right.
we want everyone to be able to hear these words, right? And so
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you to slow down a little bit. But what you just said is super important, and it really echoes what I just heard from the other panelists. Meet us where we are, understand our culture, and work with us from that point, and you'll get way more positive interaction with us. That's how we're going to build trust with you seeing us in our place, where we are, and being able to meet our needs from that point. So I thank you three ladies for the first question. Moving on to our second question. For our panelists who are a part of the Native American Indian tribe, from your own experience, how could counties approach ICWA, Indian Child and Welfare Act, and the spirit of ICWA in those supports? Tensha?
Okay. I'm gonna have to slow it down because I do talk fast when I'm excited. Um, so for my own experience, okay, so I'm enrolled in my tribe, right? And what happened for me was there was an audit. Long story short, there was an audit within my tribe. So it dropped my quantum down and it made my daughters ineligible for our tribe at that moment, right? So there's a thing called Spirit of Iqua that I had no idea about. And so when we were brought in through San Bernardino County, um, they didn't honor the ICWA. And so we were like backtracked on the side. And then when I had a case in Los Angeles County, the same thing. So what I would say is when it comes to ICWA, please honor the spirit of ICWA. Learn what that means. And because I can imagine like 2 years later, we fixed my quantum and made my daughters eligible to be enrolled. But at that time, everything was already fast forward, fast tracked, and our case ended up the way it did. So I felt alone. I felt not supported. I felt like I was going up against everybody there who was against me. I had no idea what I was doing. It was my first time being in this type of situation. And so I felt really scared. And so when it comes to this, even ICWA or the spirit of ICWA, I believe that all counties, all judges, you go into the court system and you see this sign, right? It's a real little itty bitty sign that you see. And it says, if you are Native American or believe you are, please let the court clerk or somebody there know. It needs to be it needs to be part of a curriculum, or it needs to be part of the services right straight out. Hey, if you are Native American or you have Native American descendancy and you're able to prove it, right? Because that will show the spirit of ICWA, then it should be honored, right? So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Tensha. I hear you. Resources, funding, identification from the start, and placement based off of those needs. So thank you for sharing. Your voice is super powerful. I think I could listen to you talk nonstop. Tiffany, can you share with us?
Yes, I agree with what Tinsha said, and also too, I feel that they need to be more supportive of us who are Native American, and also supportive of us going to the resources that the county offers for Native Americans, instead of saying, "Oh, well, even though you're taking that, it doesn't count towards you reuniting with your kids," that they should include that. And then also, too, they should be more appreciative of us who are going out of the box and looking for more help to make us become a better person, and encourage us to reach out to other resources through our culture, and support us in it, not be against us.
So not just meeting you where you are and your cultural needs, but also assisting you with moving forward to your next steps, whatever those next steps may be for you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
For Tavia, we also know African American families are most affected by systems. Thinking about your own experience, how could counties build trust and relationships to engage African American families in supportive services?
Thank you for the question. First off, we're disproportionately represented in a lot of systems, which means, for the amount of Black Americans in the county, we're overly represented in the systems. They're not the same number. One thing I would like to share and really emphasize is that our community, like my brother and sister BIPOC community members, have a long history with these inequities, right? We don't trust the system. We don't trust government entities. And we probably most likely don't trust the extension of that, which is oftentimes a lot of community-based organizations who are contracted by government entities then become an extension of the system and are, a concern for the Black community. You need to, one, acknowledge the harm, not in a tokenized way, not in these statements, but like literally changing how these systems will engage. Like the culture has to change. And I always say when I work with organizations and institutions, there has to be a cultural shift within the organization. I understand that there are deliverables. We have to check the box on, did we do this for the family? Did we check this off? But we need to prioritize building relationships with community and family members so that they know that we are trying to see them as human first and less about the number and the deliverables. So I would say that if organizations, institutions could prioritize building true rapport, which means remove those time limits. I know at the county it used to be like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days that you have to see people and make a decision. In that 90-day period, no one's going to trust you. If you were to come to my house right now, okay, and knocked on my door to ask me about my own family, let me tell you, the door going to get closed, okay? No one is receptive to that, okay? So we have to change the culture and understand that if you want people to be responsive to what you have to offer, assuming you're coming in with good faith, then you have to remove those limitations that these institutions have placed on their workers. So you have to build community and build trust and allow for that to happen. And then you need to just show all your cards. Teach staff, teach everyone that you can't have an agenda. As I mentioned in my previous response, there's a power imbalance. When you show up to work with someone and you have a title and you have a badge and you have some authority over people, or you have the ability to impact the outcome, the consequences, we're already in a power dynamic that is imbalanced, okay? So that would be another thing that we need to look at, is that we need to somehow share power with families and not in a tokenized way. That means that if we are inviting family and community members to have a seat at the table, they have to have just as much power to change the outcomes, to influence what the results will be, just as if someone who is a staff or has a degree or credentials behind their name. So those are my things that I would recommend that institutions and CBOs who are contracted with institutions to work with community members, you need to acknowledge the harm that was done and know that the Black community, okay, you got to come, with some humility. You need to remove those time barriers that don't allow staff to actually engage and build relationships with the families. And then you need to share power with the families so that they truly have a say in what actually happens to them versus this tokenizing approach of we give the appearance that we're going to allow you to have something to say. The families know what they need. What they need y'all to do is to release the resources that supports them getting their needs met. So those are my thoughts.
That was excellent. And as I'm watching the chat, I believe that people are aligned with your thought process. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. Power dynamic is real. Biases are real. And cultural needs are also real. And so we understand that when we come out to someone's house, we are looking at the safety of the children and we have laws to follow. But that doesn't take away from who you are as a person knocking on someone else's door as a person and being able to have that conversation genuinely to say, based on the law, these are the things that I need to do, but based on your choices and your resources and the referrals that are available to you, this is where you can be. And so I hear you building that trust and removing that power is super important. And I appreciate all of your thoughts. Okay, we're going to move on to question 3. How can systems better honor families when they first come into contact? And we'll start with Tensha.
How can systems better honor families when they first come into contact? I believe this will, and I'm not only speaking for, the Native American community, but just for all people in general, BIPOC communities. Tavia touched on it, but understanding that our communities have historical and generational trauma that have been passed down from time memorial, right? Since colonization started, but understanding that and understanding and coming into contact with us and understanding that there are certain needs that each community has and not making us feel like we're a burden, right? Making us feel like, oh, we're asking for too much, or that it's just too much to do, right? If we understood that our communities, have this type of trauma, and we start to address it at the root of it. We talked about this in our meeting last time. We talked about the underlying root to a lot of things, right? And if we peel back the onion layer, it goes way back. And if we start to address those needs from, like children early on, we can start to dismantle all of these things, all of the thoughts, all the things that were taught to us, right? Even though sometimes I didn't directly go through boarding school, but 2 generations ago, my grandfather did, my grandmother did. They were taken away from their families. I grew up hearing stories about people being their classmates being murdered, and all these different things. And there's things that we don't want to talk about, as far as when SA comes involved, physical and emotional abuse, all these things have been passed down. Now we get to the root of it, I believe that we'll start to make changes in all communities.
Thank you, Tensha. I hear you. Holistic approaches, whole family-centered approaches, understanding that we are walking in the door as a person going through the system with trauma and mistrust, feeling burdened, feeling judged, being approached when we ask for services that it's almost like we feel like we're begging to receive different things. And I hear you saying that the door should be open. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And the comments are going crazy. So I think that they appreciated that as well. Um, Not just the boarding schools, right, from 2 generations ago. I think I'm 3 generations away from being my family, my great grandfather being an indentured servant on a slave plantation. We're not so far removed. And then you have all the other laws that came in place, right? The state of California is currently in 2026 attempting and has been for the last maybe 10, 15 years to right some of those wrongs, right? They've been attempting to understand the harm that has been done and trying to make changes to it by maneuvering through the laws. And so I really, really appreciate your sharing there. I am going to ask Tiffany, can you share how can systems better honor families when they first come into contact?
I feel that the systems, they need to know, first of all, what our race is and our religion, and before they address us. Then once they know, they should have resources ready available for us, willing to help us get those resources, not denying us from resources. um there's things in this government that need to be more accessible, because like my children, their dad passed away, so they received SSDI, and there's barely any services out there for me because of what they're getting per month due to their dad passing away, which is not fair to our family, as in, what's offered to the government. And there just needs to be more supportive towards our culture. I feel that for Native Americans, we're pushed to the side. It's more concentrated on Hispanic and white. Thank you.
And so to basically state this. Um, when you come in for services in eligibility, in order to for a worker to make sure that their case is clean so that they don't get dinged, so that they know that they gave you the right amount of benefits, we're kind of taught to look at what could make you ineligible. And we begin to think that way indirectly when we should be thinking, how can I help you to become eligible? What is it that I need to do to help you figure out what this form needs to be? What do I need to do to figure out how can I help you get this piece of paper? But instead, we're on time limits and timelines, and we're worried about our jobs as well. And so instead of thinking of being an ineligibility worker, we need to focus a little bit more on being an eligibility worker. When you look at child welfare, you think their job is to focus on the safety of the children. They really don't care about the parents. They're looking at the story, and my job is to keep this child safe. And mom, you're not keeping this child safe, so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do that job. And what they need to look at is, how is mom not able to keep her child safe when all mothers, that is their only priority? How can I help this mother to keep her child safe? What is it that I can do to make sure that this mother, this parent, this father has what they need so that they can concentrate on the well being of the children that they have in their home? How can we keep these children in the home and still provide services so that mom and dad can be okay and focus on the children? So that's basically what I'm hearing from you both. And now, Tavia, I'm going to transfer over to you. How can systems better honor families when they first come in contact?
And thank you. There's a saying, if you're gonna don't discuss the community without the community being present. So let's take it one step further. Don't design programs for the community without the community co-designing the program that they will utilize for the services that they need. That should be the norm, not the exception. We have a really great example in Los Angeles County that I co-designed, which is called the Mother Board, which is a 21 African-American woman led advisory council of individuals who have lived experience as it relates to the maternal and infant health challenges. And so here's some good points for those who are in the room that might have the ability to do this. One, we treat everyone with lived experience as if there's someone who has a PhD. Your lived experience is just as credible and as valuable as someone with a degree. Okay, so that's one. Two is they are paid like a consultant for their contribution to the work. They don't get $100, they get $9,000 for the year of work. $9,000. They're not overworked, they're not recognized, they're valued and centered with their lived experience. And that they co-design the policies and the programs and the efforts that county agencies such as Department of Public Health, Department of Human Services, and other departments will utilize to engage the Black community in the AIM prevention work. If you want programs to be used by the community you're serving, they should be co-designing the program. What that does is also build credible messengers, right? Because now they've had a hand in designing the very things they're going to utilize, and they're going to go back to their communities and their neighborhoods, and they're going to tell people about it. And that will then increase the utilization of that program. The next thing I would say, or the next really big point is, we got to do away with the savior complex. Okay, you're not saving nobody. We have to understand that the system was created, okay, to cause harm. And if you work for the system, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. You need to humble yourself and come before the family as a co-creator, a co-designer, a supporter, and empowerment. It's about them and not you. Yes, we're here to look at the safety issues, but I love how you said, Andrea, you said, what does the mom or dad or grandma, who's ever taking care of the kids, what is the gap in their needs that needs to be addressed so that they can show up powerfully for that child? This even goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When people are lacking food, housing, shelter, those things, no one can think about the self-actualization that we all really want for our children. I don't know, I grew up in deep poverty where I only ate once a day. To this day, as a 40-something-year-old woman who has the means to eat, I still struggle to remind myself that I can eat more than once a day. That's that generational stuff that we're dealing with. And to assume that people, just because they're adults, they should have it together is not the case. So humble yourself. You're not the savior. Design stuff with the people you want to. And I loved in the comment section is on fire. Someone said research the community. I'm going to take it one step further. Look at Empower Them Collective. We do community-based participatory research, which means the community studies itself. We don't allow people into our community like we're lab rats to be studied. We provide training and capacity building skills to the community so that the community can study its own challenges and then work together to identify the solutions they need. And then through our leadership training, they know how to come and sit at the table and make their requests known. Demand, quite honestly, I'm gonna be nice. Demand that their needs are met. So those are just some of my recommendations of how you truly, authentically, equitably, shared power, in good faith, engage the community to ensure their needs are met.
Thank you, Tavia. I am a firm follower of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I show up in my career for the last 20 something years, sometimes feeling like I have this imposter syndrome because I have all of this mistrust for the system through my experience. But then in working for the system, I have learned to understand why it is the way it is and it's built the way it is. And so I just appreciate you saying, bring them to the table, listen to them at the table, let them help fill the table, and then guide them a little bit as needed. Right. And so I totally hear what you're saying and I appreciate your voice. Um, Question 4. What message do you want leaders, staff, and partners in this room to carry forward? And this time we're going to start with Tavia.
Oh, now more than ever, with everything that's going on in the world, funding, money, budget, let's just go there for a moment. You need the community's help to help the community address its own needs. So the more we can provide capacity building to the community members and families who are ready for that, okay? Because there's families that are in crisis, and right now we need to address those needs, right? So when people move past that and they're ready to be a part of the change, we need to provide resources for the families that are ready to support other families and to help engage with systems. So for the leaders in the room, start to invest in bringing families, parents who've made it out successfully, whether it took a year, 2, 3 years, whatever the case may be, so that they can be those peers that can now work with the other families and value them at a high level. Please don't tokenize them. We need to dig deep because the only way we're going to sustain and survive and then eventually thrive is by empowering the community, the families, to actually support the work by doing the work themselves. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you for that. Help us, help you, help us is what I just heard you say, right? Help us, help you, help us. And it's going in a cycle. We're all saying the same thing, right? But it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so I feel like that was pretty powerful. Tensha, what message do you want leaders, staff, and partners in this room to carry forward?
Okay, I'm thinking about it from the sense I'm taking myself back to 2009 when I first was introduced to the system. What would I have wanted them to help me? I mean, what would I say to them back then? I read a comment in there about, some workers out there that are actually doing the work, and that is absolutely true. Working with LA County, I had an amazing social worker that did her due diligence to help me get back my daughters because of the story that I had with San Bernardino County. So that's why I bring up 2009. What I want you all to take away from this is that we are individual peoples. We need some, and I read in the comments as well, like sometimes we don't know, like we don't know. I didn't know that there were systems out there. I didn't know that there was help out there. I did not know. When I was heavily into my addiction, when I was, being beat by my ex-husband, and I had no one to turn to, and and I had family there, but I was so embarrassed because of what was going on. I couldn't say that I needed help. I think that there needs to be more talk about these things, and let's not pretend that it's not happening, because it's happening in many households. I'm pretty sure it's happening in affluent neighborhoods as well. But let's be honest and let's talk about these things. Let's bring up these things and let people know, hey, you're going through it, but it's okay. We're here to help. And if you don't know how to help, like Tavia said, get with people that know about these things. Ask them what could have made a difference in your life. What could we have done? Like I said, I had no idea that there were self-help programs like Narcotics Anonymous, or I had no idea until I got into the system. And so these things should be talked about way before that. Let it be known instead of, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we try to brush it under the rug because we're embarrassed about these things that we have for our communities. But like they said, these are systems that were put into place to keep us down. That's what I feel like. And then sometimes some of us rise out of the ashes and we start to move forward. So, like with the things that I want to do with school, I do want to create systems change. I do want to address the Relocation Act, the Kill the Indian, Save the Man, and all these different things that have hurt my people intentionally. So these are things that I feel like, let's talk about these things. Let's make people feel like they're not I'm going to keep saying this over and over. Just make us feel like we're not a burden and that you're really here to help. And if you don't know how to help, be intentional with it and say, how can we help you? Thank you.
I love that because I don't think not one employee in the state of California comes to work to say, I'm not helping these people today, or how can I ruin these people's lives even more, right? They come to work with their hearts. They come to work with their minds open. We really, really try to meet people where they are, but we also don't have maybe the same experience or maybe the same cultural upbringing. And so I love what you just said, right? If you're not sure, just ask me. I'm an open book. Obviously, I'm here. I'm an open book. Talk to me. That's how we build trust. I work the linkages program in the state of California, and our main philosophy is remove the silos, build collaboration, and communicate. And that's all the families are needing and wanting. And that's the exact same thing that our agencies want to do. So, how do we get that together? How do we meet each other in the middle? Um, is huge, right? And that's why we're here today at the table having this great conversation. Um, Tiffany, what message do you want leaders, staff, and partners in the room to carry forward?
The message I would like them to walk away with is that when they first meet a family, I know that like we've done bad to get us in that situation, but they need to have hope and encouragement and support that we can reunify with our children. We can build our family stronger. I hope that they'll be able to provide Native American resources, more Native American resources for Native American families. And maybe they should have, like Tencha said, like a family to family support group also, where people with lived experiences that were reunified with their children could encourage the people who are just getting into the system and saying, hey, you can do it if you follow the guidelines, and there are resources out there. And also too, I wish that there was more supportive financial resources for people who, like for me, I had to quit my job to care for my mom who has cancer, but because my children are receiving SSDI benefits, I'm like the government's only giving me 450 for food stamps, and that's supposed to feed my family. And also too, like I can't collect child support because the child's father doesn't work. So, there should be more resources for single parents so that we don't fall back into the system. We're able to continue to strive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. I hear you saying uplift identification from the very beginning, right? Who are we and how and learn how to approach us based off of that identification so that that way you get Native American services and resources if that's what you should be eligible to. I hear you saying family, peer-to-peer support. Someone who has been through this process already has possibly really been successful through this process and can translate between, right? Because we're all speaking a different language. I hear you saying, show your hand. What resources do you have? Don't just offer me the resources that you think I'm going to benefit from, but what all resources do you have? Because I'll mess around and need a couple of more on your list that we didn't talk about, right? And those are the things that I hear you saying. So I thank you for your voice. Again, workers, we come to work every day with those thoughts in mind, and time flies, right? We really appreciate the feedback that you guys have provided with us today. And I believe we have time for our final question, and we'll start with Tiffany. How do we ensure prevention efforts are culturally responsive and grounded in community wisdom?
So, how can we ensure that they're grounded? You need to attend the programs that the cultural resources provide. Like I attended, I think it was Circle of Wellness that helped through OVCDC, which is Owen Valley Career Development Center. And they really helped me to ground myself, find out the emotions that I'm experiencing, help me to become a better parent with my children. They had what's it called? Youth employment, where my one of my children was old enough to participate, and they offered services of helping them find jobs. They also both my boys were able to attend the Dreamers Resource Fair at Universities of San Bernardino. And just, participating in the cultural events that are offered. And also, too, they offer, like someone had said in the chat, there's tribal TANF where they help you financially and they help you with your schooling. There's lots of services that they do offer us Native Americans that I'm grateful for.
When we become employed, we're so excited to have the job, right? We went to school, we got our degree, we applied, we went through the interview process, and now we're at work. Yay. And that doesn't mean that we're aware of all the resources that the community offers, right? If I've never dealt with a Native American family, I have no clue as to what resources are available to the Native American community. If this is my first time having an interaction with an African American family, I have no clue or understanding what resources are available out there for you. And over time, we begin to learn. Over time, we began to notice and say, oh, one of my families told me about this. Maybe you can check this out. And eventually, our coffers fill. And eventually we learn about those resources. Coworkers may hear us on the phone with someone and say, "Oh my goodness, I got a resource for you. Let me tell you." And that's kind of how we build our resources. And so plus, what we have lists and lists that we have booklets full of resources that we're not memorizing. We don't really utilize them until we utilize them. And so, what I hear you saying is understand what's out there, find out, figure it out, do a Google search, and meet me where I am with my needs, is what I hear you saying. Tavia, how do we ensure prevention efforts are culturally responsive and grounded in community wisdom?
Thank you. I think every question I've answered has been rooted in not for us, without us, right? But I think my final thought on that would be um, we need to close the feedback loop to the entities that are creating these prevention services. So, for lack of a better terminology, I would say advisory councils, right? So then that way, these institutions can go speak directly to the trusted community people to say, yeah, this works, this isn't working, this isn't culturally aligned, this is going to be a challenge. So I think, again, not being the exception, but the norm, that there is a advisory body, a third party body that I don't want to use the word holding these providers accountable, but to an extent as like a watchdog. Like, hey, we're looking and we're checking to see if this is continuing to stay in line. So that would really be my recommendation, that there is a third party entity, the community, that is in partnership, communication, and closes the feedback loop with these entities to ensure that they remain aligned with the goals and the intentions that were set when these prevention services were designed. And that these institutions are open to the feedback and will be quick to make adjustments to ensure that the community feels comfortable interacting and engaging with them.
Thank you for that. I feel like that was kind of like a little bit of what you had previously said about what did I do with my notes? Bring them to the table, listen to them, take that feedback in, and make changes. One of my previous directors told me, plan, study, do, act, right? Plan, study, do it, and then repeat until you feel like you've gotten it together. So I appreciate that. Tensha, how do we ensure prevention efforts are culturally responsive and grounded in community wisdom?
There's a few points I want to make. First one I want to really address is tribal sovereignty. Understanding that every tribe has their own sovereignty and understanding what that means, right? A lot of us are here. A lot of us here are not California tribes in urban areas, but there are tribes here. California is home to one of the most populated tribes in all of North America. So understanding that every tribe has their own sovereignty and how to work with them and not tell them how to run their systems. But when working with urban natives, working with nonprofit native organizations that work directly with tribal members who are not from here and learning the needs, right? There's an intersectionality with our people that a lot of us have the same traditions, a lot. There's similarities, but they're not the same, right? So understanding that part. Also, and I heard that word earlier, tokenize. Don't tokenize us. Don't do a land acknowledgement and thinking like, oh, check off, actually intentionally working with our community and working with these nonprofits because they'll know what we need. A lot of these nonprofits here, I know a few in LA that have actually done a lot of data work on what's working for us. For myself, it's coming back to my tribal ways, my traditional ways, learning about the language, learning about the culture, practicing my language in every time that I can. So when I have a little grandbaby now, I talk to her in Navajo with the words that I know, right? Just learning the little things, right? Because culture and traditions for me is super important. When I go and I go to my own tribe and I see the different things that we do, it's beautiful. I go to the Southern Ute tribe, beautiful. I go to different tribes out here. It's just so beautiful. And those are the things that we need for us as people. Now, again, It's learning to co-create also with other organizations, again, to learn how to lead on what we need. Um, Tribal sovereignty, I kind of lost my thought, you guys. I'm sorry. Um, Building trust. I'm sorry, I lost my thought. I was on fire and then I lost it. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is just don't try not to act like you know what we need. Ask organizations or ask tribal members directly, but understanding that these are our own opinions that we're working with. I can't speak for all tribal members. I can only speak for what worked for me. This is never going to be a one size fits all. It's not a cookie cutter process. Everyone's going to have different needs, but just meeting us where we're at. Thank you.
I don't even think that I need to reiterate anything that you just said. I think your point was clear and came across perfectly. So I thank you for that. I want to thank you all for being a part of today's engaging discussion. Rooted in community, parents leading trust and protections for children. Your insights have illuminated the many ways collaboration can catalyze meaningful change and strengthen prevention strategies across communities. Throughout this session, we've explored diverse perspectives. Panelists have highlighted both the challenges and opportunities inherent to translating collaboration into tangible outcomes. A reminder that effective prevention requires both vision and coordinated action. I want to sincerely thank each of our panelists, Tensha, Tavia, and Tiffany. Your thoughtful contributions, real world examples, and candid reflections have provided a rich foundation for everyone here to consider and act upon. As we conclude, I invite everyone, both panelists and audience members, to reflect on how today's discussions inform your work. How might you apply new strategies, forge stronger partnerships, or foster innovation in your own communities? Prevention is most powerful when it moves from dialogue into action. Although our formal discussion ends here, the conversation doesn't have to. I encourage you to connect with our panelists, encourage these discussions in our networks, and share learnings that can extend the impact of today's session. Thank you once again for your time, expertise, and engagement. Let's move forward, inspired to transform collaboration into meaningful, lasting prevention outcomes. Thank you.
Wow. Whew. Y'all, I mean, can we just take a moment and I see all the emojis. Please keep them coming. We need a collective just inhale and exhale. Both of these panels, both of our panels, y'all. Wow. Please see the love and the joy. Oh, my heart. I'm fired. Tensha, I'm with you. We fired up. Yes.
Girl, I'm
Oh,
gonna say, let's go. Let's just do this. Like, let's get this done. Together we can, right? Together we can. And
together we
if we just,
can.
if we keep on just like pulling each other down because it's a system that was built to do that, right? They want us to, like fight for scraps. No, if we can go do all these things out there in this world, especially California, we can take care of the whole nation. We need to be able to take care of in-house first. That's what we need to do. And for those who are down with it, we need to start creating policies that are aimed to help our communities because we have so much trauma. Most
Yes.
BIPOC, I want to say BIPOC communities, period. We have so much trauma, and people could learn from us and how to do these things. But I get the feeling that and not to disrespect. I mean, maybe I do want to disrespect government systems. I don't know, but maybe they want to do that because they're afraid that they're going to lose a job or something. But instead of looking at it like that, look at it like a different way. Maybe we'll create better jobs that will keep people together, keep people housed. So we're creating different things, right? Those are my
Mhm.
thoughts.
Thank you, Tensha. No, I listen, every single thing. I saw all the comments. I see how both panels are doing exactly what they're supposed to, right? We're reacting in real time, we're processing in real time, we're receiving in real time. So much of the discussion in the chat is just illuminating that. And that's exactly why we're here. And I just want to thank Aliana, Angelica, Janelle, Michael, Andrea, Tensha, Javia, and Tiffany. Thank each and every one of you for setting the tone, setting the stage for what we need to take in today and what we need to bring with us tomorrow when we are continuing this deep work. Truly, thank you. Being in this space today with people who are committed to prevention, to families, to community, it matters. And not just professionally, but personally. My name is Janae Eustace, and I'm the CEO and president of the Child Abuse Prevention Center. This work for me, it's not just work. It's never been just work. It's lived. I come from the very communities we are talking about today. I've seen what happens when systems don't see families fully, when support comes too late, when survival gets labeled as neglect. And I've seen the opposite, y'all. What happens when someone shows up, when a community wraps around you, when there is trust, when there is love, when there's no judgment. That's what prevention is. It's not a program. It's not a strategy on paper. It's not just a funding stream. It's people. It's relationships. It's trust. It's being seen for something. It's being seen before something goes wrong. And if we're really honest with ourselves, the families we are trying to reach, especially our young people, they don't engage with systems. They engage with people. They engage with spaces where they feel safe, where they feel respected, where they feel like they belong. And that means if we are serious about prevention, we have to be serious about authentic community and youth engagement. Not engagement that checks a box. We heard this. Not engagement that happens after decisions are already made. That's tokenism. But engagement that shares power, that listens, that shifts, that sometimes slows down because we're actually doing what's right. We have to slow down. Angelica said it earlier, we have to slow down. Young people know when we're real. Families know when we're real. And they also know when we're not. So the question for all of us is, are we building systems that people have to navigate? Or are we building communities that people want to be a part of? Because prevention lives in community. It lives in family resource centers. It lives in trusted messengers. It lives in neighborhoods. It lives with aunties and coaches and mentors. It lives in everyday moments where someone says, I see you. What do you need? And to be clear, this work is not easy. It's not easy. It requires us to look at our systems, our policies, our even ourselves, and ask those hard questions about trust, about power, about who are we really centering and who do we not center. But what gives me hope, what brings me back, is spaces like this. What we've heard today, the panelists that we have had today. because I see people who care deeply. Even in the comments, I see people who care deeply. I see people who are pushing for something better. I see people who understand that protecting children starts with strengthening families and communities. Not after harm, but before. So my encouragement to all of us is this: stay rooted in community. Stay accountable to the people that we serve. Stay in relationship with young people, not recipients, but as leaders. And don't lose the heart of why we do this work. Because at the end of the day, prevention is action. Prevention is love in action. Prevention is love in action. And when we get that right, y'all, when we lead with trust, with dignity, with community, we don't just change systems, we change lives. Thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you all for being a part of that. I'm passing it on.
Oh, Janae, you're a tough act to follow. Fortunately, I'm taking us to lunch. I just want to again reiterate Janae's appreciation for our panelists today. These are the conversations that as a planning team, we have been craving to have the real, heavy, deep conversations about what's real, folks, and then moving forward to improve on these systems that we know are so dysfunctional and so harmful. So thanks to each and every one of you for your bravery to join the panels today, and for a couple of you who showed up at the very last minute and pitched in. You did an amazing job, so thank you. So welcome back. We hope you feel inspired by everything that you learned today in our workshops. The recordings will be emailed out next week and posted to our Strategies YouTube channel next week. Just some housekeeping about tomorrow. We've got another really full day for you all tomorrow. So we're going to start at 9 o'clock with a welcome from our convening planning partners, followed by a short community pathways overview presentation. Then we'll move into our third panel with Alameda County's Comprehensive Prevention Plan team, which I really encourage you all to attend. It's going to be just yet another inspiring and incredible conversation with some folks who just are very passionate about this work. Next, you'll convene with your own county's CPP team for 105 minutes to be exact, and you'll have lunch with your teams. And then after lunch, you'll return to the main session on HUVA for a presentation from Calaveras County on community pathways, progress, and lessons learned. Next, your county CPP will meet again. We convene for another 90 minutes together. And then we'll wrap up the day by meeting back on HUVA's main session at 3:20, where we'll have some peer sharing from San Diego and Sacramento counties on their community pathways work. And we'll close with appreciations and acknowledgements.
All right, thanks, Elisa. So as we wrap up this incredible day, I want to highlight some upcoming prevention-focused events happening across the state. We're excited to share there's a variety of webinars and opportunities to keep the momentum going and deepen your engagement in prevention work. So I'll point out the Office of Child Abuse Prevention and the Child Abuse Prevention Center present the 2026 California Statewide Child Abuse Prevention Month activities. And those are, the theme for this year is Strong Families, Safe Futures. When we care together, families thrive. So there will be a weekly webinar series happening Wednesdays in April at 11 a.m. each Wednesday. Wear Blue Day for Friday, April 10th. There'll be a kids art contest with winners to be announced in April, and parent and caregiver leadership virtual award ceremony, as well as the Children's Memorial flag raising on April 24th. As you'll see to the right, California Training Institute has a variety of really engaging and helpful trainings for both March and April. I won't read through all of them, but you can see them here and you can access those trainings through Caltrans website. And thank you, team, for putting those in the chat. Chapin Hall and the California Department of Social Services are sponsoring 3 lived experts to be expert consultants at $100 per hour to support family first prevention services and continuous quality improvement activities. So you'll see the roles and next steps listed there. And finally, the Child and Family Policy Institute of California is going to be having their Linkages 2.0 2026 statewide convening, Building Bridges for Families. And that'll be April 28th and 29th in Sacramento. Fabulous. All right, next slide. Oh, one more back. There we go. Save the dates. Okay, so I wanted to share that the convening planning team is excited to announce we now have dates for the 2027 statewide collaborative prevention convening. Next year's event will be held on March 17th and 18th, and there'll be a saved date to come soon. Thank you again, planning team, for your forward-thinking vision and excitement to get the event going for next year. So save the date, everyone. Next slide. All right, so thank you again, folks, for being here today. Your time and energy is greatly appreciated. Before we wrap up, I'd like to also send a great big thank you to the strategies, tech, and production team behind the scenes today who have worked so incredibly hard to make this event possible. You are all truly an amazing team and greatly and deeply appreciated. Thank you. I'll ask folks again to please take a moment, just all the love for the tech team. Thank you. For those of you who've ever done it, you know how hard it is, and they did an amazing job. For those of you who haven't had a moment to fill out the evaluation survey for day 1, we'd ask that you scan the QR code, or you can click on the link that I'm sure will be dropped into the chat shortly. And we'd love to know how things went today. This helps us, the planning team and ourselves, to improve the event for next year and also to make it as relevant as possible for your needs. All right, next slide. And Elisa, I believe I'm passing to you.
Yep, and we're going to wrap it with a few resources for everybody. So you are free to reach out to CDSS if you'd like more information about Family First Prevention Services Act, as well as comprehensive prevention planning. Caltrans is also another really great resource for comprehensive prevention planning. They have an entire page with every single CPP that's been submitted and accepted. So that's another great resource. And lastly, do feel free to reach out to Strategies TA if you're interested in learning more about what our technical assistance offerings are across the state. We do have a new website, so if you haven't visited our website in the last 6 months or so, you'll see it's very different. And I think you'll find it really helpful, and you can request technical assistance there as well as learn about our offerings. And with that, I think we're going to conclude our day and send you off, and we look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.